I watched them from across the room, their hands intertwined, their smiles radiant. The perfect couple. At least that's what everyone else saw. But I saw the cracks already forming. I saw the storm brewing beneath the surface. Because they thought they had won. They thought I was gone. But what they didn't know, I had let them win. And now I was going to make them regret it. It had all happened so quickly. One moment I was engaged. The next, I was watching my fiancé slip a ring onto another woman's finger. A woman who had smiled in my face, pretended to be my friend. A woman who had spent months weaving lies around us, waiting for the right moment to take everything from me. And my fiancé? He had fallen for it so easily. As if our years together meant nothing. As if I had never been the woman he once claimed to love. But instead of fighting, instead of begging, instead of exposing them right then and there, I walked away. And that was the biggest mistake they ever made. The whispers followed me everywhere. She didn't even put up a fight. She just left just like that? Did she even love him? I heard them. Every cruel assumption. Every insult. Every theory about why I hadn't tried to stop the wedding. But I ignored them. Because I wasn't here to prove anything. I wasn't here to make a scene. I was here to watch. To let them enjoy their little victory. Because soon, I was going to rip it away from them. Piece by piece. Until there was nothing left. The fake heiress thought she had won. She paraded him around, smug and victorious. She clung to his arm at every event, made sure the cameras caught every perfect moment. She smiled like a queen who had stolen a throne. And my ex? He followed blindly. Like a man who thought he had just upgraded his life. Like a man who thought he had left behind dead weight. But what he didn't realize, I was the one who had let go of him, not the other way around. And soon, he would wish I had fought for him. Because nothing was more terrifying than a woman who had nothing left to lose. I started small. Simple moves. Moves that wouldn't be noticed until it was too late. A whisper to the right person. A small rumor placed in the perfect ear. A subtle shift in alliances. I was patient. I was careful. Because this wasn't about a single blow. This was about slow destruction. Watching them crumble from the inside. And my first move? Casting the first doubt. It started at a gala. A night of luxury, power, and carefully constructed appearances. She walked in like she owned the world. Holding on to my ex like he was her greatest prize. But I simply sat back and watched. Because I had already planted the first seed. And tonight, it would bloom. The first whisper came from a woman at the bar. She looks a little too perfect, doesn't she? A man beside her raised a brow. What do you mean? The woman took a sip of her drink, eyes flickering to the fake heiress. I mean, does anyone actually know where she came from? The man frowned. And just like that, the first doubt had been placed. A tiny crack in her perfect image. A small question that would slowly grow into something bigger. I watched as the fake heiress stiffened. She must have heard it. Must have felt the shift in the air. She turned her head slightly, her eyes scanning the room, searching for the source of the whisper. Searching for the enemy she didn't know existed. And when her gaze met mine, I smiled. Soft. Innocent. Harmless. Like I wasn't the reason her world was about to fall apart. Like I wasn't the reason she would soon lose everything she had stolen from me. And that's when I saw it. The flicker of uncertainty in her expression. Like she already knew. Like she already felt the walls closing in. Good. Let her feel it. Because this was only the beginning. The second move came days later. A carefully crafted conversation. A suggestion placed in the right ears. One of the major investors who had supported my ex's business, who had believed in the fake heiress's perfect image, received an anonymous letter. One that included just enough evidence to make him question who he was really supporting. Because her wealth? Her connections? Her background? It was all a lie. And now? The truth was creeping toward the surface. Days later, at another high-profile event, I watched as the whispers grew louder. People looking at her with subtle skepticism, doubt flickering through the once unwavering loyalty of her new allies. And my ex? He hadn't noticed yet. Because he was still blind. Still convinced he had upgraded his life. Still holding her hand like she was his greatest achievement. But soon, Soon he would start to see. And when he finally did, it would already be too late. The fake heiress started noticing something was wrong. Her once perfect smiles became strained. Her confidence became shaky. She started looking over her shoulder, started watching me, like she knew I was behind this, like she was waiting for me to strike. But the best part? I already had. And she didn't even realize it. One night at a charity gala, she finally approached me. Alone, away from the cameras. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the sharpness beneath it. "What are you doing?" I sipped my wine, tilting my head. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Her lips pressed together. "I know it's you." I smiled. Soft, sweet, deadly. "Then prove it." Her fingers curled into fists. She hated this. Hated that she couldn't stop me. Hated that for the first time she was losing control. And that was just the beginning. Because I was about to rip away everything she ever wanted, one piece at a time, until she was left with nothing, just like she had done to me. And this time, there would be no mercy. It will already be too late. The fake heiress was unraveling. I could see it in the way her smile no longer reached her eyes, in the way she clung to my ex like he was her last shield against the storm, in the way she searched the room every time she walked in, searching for me. Because she knew. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know how deep the trap went. Not yet. But she would. Soon. The whispers were getting louder, stronger, more dangerous. Every event she attended, someone had a question, a doubt, a tiny piece of her perfect story that didn't quite fit. But my favorite moment? The moment I had been waiting for? It happened when one of the biggest investors, a man who had been backing my ex's company for years, finally asked the question out loud. "I heard an interesting rumor," he said, swirling his glass of wine. The fake heiress's fingers tightened around her champagne flute. She forced a smile. "Oh." He glanced at my ex, then back at her. "They say your background isn't quite what we thought it was." Silence. The fake heiress's expression froze for just a fraction of a second. Then she laughed lightly. "People will say anything when they're jealous, won't they?" The investor chuckled, but I saw it. The flicker of hesitation. The first crack in their trust. And once a man like that starts questioning you, it's only a matter of time before everything collapses. I watched from across the room, my lips curling into a small victorious smile. Because this was just the first step. The first thread being pulled. And soon, the entire fabric of her carefully crafted life would unravel. Because people don't trust what they don't understand. And the moment doubt takes root, it spreads like wildfire. But the fake heiress wasn't the only one feeling the shift. My ex was starting to notice too. He wasn't stupid. He could feel the whispers growing, could sense that the woman he had chosen might not be who she claimed to be. And for the first time since he threw me away, he was starting to wonder if he had made a mistake. The first sign, he started watching me again. Not obviously, not in a way anyone else would notice, but I could feel it. Every time I entered a room, his gaze found me. Not with arrogance, not with indifference, with something else. Something that looked an awful lot like regret. I let him watch. Let him see how much I had changed. How I wasn't the woman he had abandoned. How I had become something more. And he had settled for less. And that realization was going to destroy him. The fake heiress must have noticed it too. Because she tightened her grip on him, clung to him at events, laughed a little louder, kissed him in public a little more. Desperation. I had seen it before. And I knew exactly where it led. To insecurity. To mistakes. To her own downfall. And she was already making the first one. Started with a lie. A small one. But in this world, even the smallest crack can break an empire. She claimed to have a connection that she didn't have. A powerful family name that wasn't really hers. And at first, people believed her. 'Cause why wouldn't they? She had built her reputation on illusion. But when that single lie was exposed, it all started to fall apart. A reporter, one who had been curious about the whispers surrounding her name, dug just a little too deep, asked just the right questions, and found the truth. Her family name wasn't real. Her lineage was forged, and everything she had built her identity on was a lie. The story broke that night. News headlines flashed across screens. Heiress or fraud? The truth behind her wealth exposed. And the moment she saw it, I knew. I knew the real panic was about to begin. Because nothing crumbles faster than a lie exposed in the light. Her perfect world began to shatter. Investors hesitated. Business allies pulled away. And my ex? He finally saw her for what she really was. A fraud. A manipulator. A woman who had stolen everything she had. Including him. And now? She was about to lose it all. The fake heiress tried to control the damage. Tried to cover her tracks. Tried to turn the blame onto someone else. But she wasn't me. She didn't know how to play this game. She had spent so long believing she was untouchable that she never prepared for what happened when the illusion broke. And now, she was spiraling. I watched from the sidelines, waiting, because I knew what was coming next. The moment every betrayer reaches when their world collapses. The moment when they look back at the person they once discarded and realize they should have never let them go. And that moment came sooner than I expected, because that night, as I was leaving the event, he finally broke. My ex came to me. I heard my name before I saw him. A quiet, hesitant, almost broken whisper. I turned slowly and there he was, standing a few feet away, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. And I just smiled, because I knew I had won, and he was finally realizing it. He took a step closer. I need to talk to you. I tilted my head. Why? His throat bobbed. His hands clenched. I think I made a mistake. I exhaled slowly, my smile widening. I know. He stared at me, his breathing uneven. Like he wanted to say more. Like he wanted to undo everything. But he couldn't. Because some mistakes can't be fixed. Some choices can't be reversed. And this was one of them. I took a slow step forward, leaning in just enough so only he could hear me. And then in the softest, most lethal whisper I said, "Too bad." And then I walked away, leaving him standing in the ruins of his own decisions. Because this was just the beginning of his downfall. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. She was losing everything. And she knew it. The fake heiress had spent years building an illusion, stealing wealth, reputation, and my fiancé. But now, her world was crumbling. And the best part? She had no idea who was pulling the strings. The media wouldn't stop. The whispers had turned into full-blown conversations. People were questioning her credentials, her background, everything she had ever claimed to be. And my ex? He was finally seeing the truth. But by the time he realized what he had lost, I was already gone. I heard the fake heiress had a meltdown. It happened at an exclusive event. A reporter asked the wrong question, one she wasn't prepared for. Would you like to address the rumors about your family name? She froze. Then she tried to laugh it off. But the people watching, they weren't laughing. They were waiting. Because when a lie is finally exposed, everyone wants to see how the liar reacts. She did what every cornered snake does. She attacked. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. About how she lashed out at the reporter. About how her voice cracked as she tried to deny everything. About how my ex stood beside her. But his expression was no longer sure. Because for the first time he was wondering if he had been played too. And that was exactly what I wanted. I knew what would happen next. Knew how people like her react when their empire is collapsing. She would get desperate. She would look for someone to blame. And soon, she would realize that I had never been as weak as she thought I was. The first sign came the next evening. A message. Not from my ex. Not from the people she once called allies. From her. The fake heiress. We need to talk. I stared at the message, my lips curling into a slow smile. Of course she wanted to talk. She was losing. And when people like her start to lose, they start grasping at anything that can save them. But she didn't know. There was nothing left to save. I responded with a single word. Fine. And then I waited. Because I knew. This wasn't just a conversation. This was the beginning of her final mistake. We met at a private lounge. Somewhere she thought she could control the conversation. She arrived before me, sitting at a quiet corner table. But the moment I stepped inside, she tensed. Because I wasn't the same woman she betrayed. I was stronger now, more dangerous, and she knew it. I slid into the seat across from her, taking my time, letting the silence stretch. She exhaled sharply. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I smiled, tilting my head. What exactly am I enjoying? Her fingers curled around her glass. My life is falling apart. I hummed, pretending to think. Sounds like a personal problem. Her lips pressed together. You think I don't know what you're doing? I arched a brow. What am I doing? Her breath shook. You set me up. I let out a soft laugh. Set you up? I echoed. You set yourself up. She flinched. Because she knew I was right. She leaned forward, voice lower now. You think this is over? I stayed still, letting her break herself apart. Her nails tapped against the table. You think you've won? I tilted my head. Haven't I? Her breathing turned shallow. Then finally her voice cracked. I'm not going to lose everything to you. I exhaled slowly, then leaned in. Sweetheart, I whispered. You already have. And that was the moment she truly snapped. Her final move came fast. Desperate. Unhinged. I should have seen it coming. Because when a woman like her is backed into a corner, she always fights dirty. The next morning, a new scandal erupted. But this time, it wasn't about her. It was about me. False rumors. Lies about my business, my reputation, fabricated stories meant to tear me down. She thought she could drag me into the dirt with her. She thought she could ruin me before I completely destroyed her. But what she didn't realize, I had been waiting for this. She played her move. Now it was my turn. And this time, I wasn't just taking her down. I was taking everything she ever touched. The next few days were chaos. The fake heiress did everything she could to hold on to what was left. But her lies were already too exposed. Her past was already too tainted. And me? I countered every single attack. With facts. With truth. With undeniable proof that she was a fraud, a manipulator, a thief. And soon, the world finally saw her for what she truly was. Nothing. Her business deals? Gone. Her reputation? Destroyed. And my ex? For the first time, he truly saw the woman he had chosen over me. And the best part? She turned on him. When desperate people fall, they look for someone to blame. And she chose him. She started leaking his secrets, started twisting the narrative, started claiming he was part of her schemes all along. And he finally realized he had been nothing but a pawn in her game. And now they were both losing. One night, my ex tried to contact me, tried to explain, tried to tell me he had made a mistake. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because now, he was the one watching from the sidelines. As I walked away from him forever, the fake heiress disappeared after that, vanished from the business world. Her name became nothing but a cautionary tale. And my ex? He was left with nothing. Everything he had thrown me away for? Gone. And me? I walked into a life where they didn't exist. And I had never felt more alive. He had lost everything. The fake heiress was gone. Her empire had crumbled. Her lies had buried her alive. And now he was standing in the ruins of his own choices. And for the first time since he betrayed me, he finally understood. The first time he tried to reach me, I ignored him. A call. Then a message. Then another. Then another. We need to talk. I need to see you. I was wrong. I read every word. Then I deleted them. Because his regret, it meant nothing to me now. But he didn't stop. Because some men don't know how to accept their own failure. Some men don't realize the door is locked until it's too late. And him? He was banging on a door that would never open again. The final attempt came one evening. A charity event. A gathering of business elites, powerful names, people who mattered. I had arrived, dressed in confidence, walking into a world where I belonged. And then I saw him, standing in the crowd, watching me, like a man drowning who had just spotted land. Like he thought I was the last thing that could save him. But the truth? I wasn't his salvation. I was the reason he was sinking. I should have walked past him. Should have pretended he didn't exist. But instead I stopped. 'Cause I wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear him say the words that no longer mattered. I tilted my head. You look like you have something to say. His throat bobbed. I was wrong. I smiled. Sharp. Cold. Amused. I know. His hands clenched at his sides. I need you to hear me out. I let out a soft laugh. I don't need to do anything. His jaw tightened. He wasn't used to this. To being the one chasing. To being the one begging. And I was enjoying every second of it. His voice was lower now, almost pleading. I made a mistake. I hummed, pretending to think. Which one? His breath hitched. Leaving you. For the first time his voice cracked. For the first time I saw it. The regret. The desperation. The realization that he had thrown away the best thing in his life. But the best part? I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just nothing. As I had already won. And he? He was nothing but a footnote in my story now. He took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. We could start over. I tilted my head. Start over. His eyes searched mine. I know I don't deserve another chance, but... I cut him off with a soft smile. You're right. You don't. His breath stilled. I leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a whisper. You don't deserve me. I saw it then. The moment his heart broke. The moment he realized this was real. That I wasn't coming back. That I had moved forward while he was still stuck in the past. And the worst part? He had done this to himself. He exhaled sharply, his shoulders sagging. I just want to fix this. I sighed, shaking my head. You can't fix something that's already gone. His lips parted, but no words came out. Because he had nothing left to say. Nothing that would change what he had done. Nothing that would change who I had become. I smiled. Soft. Final. This is where our story ends. His throat bobbed. You're really going to walk away? I tilted my head. I already did. I turned, my heels clicking against the marble floor. I expected him to stop me. To call my name. To beg one last time. But he didn't. Because he finally understood. I was already gone. And now? He had to live with it. The next morning, the final headline was printed. Fallen CEO officially steps down. Lost company, reputation, and ex-fiancé. I read it over coffee, smiled, and moved on with my life. Because his regret, his pain, his endless aching loss, that was his burden to carry now. Not mine. Never mine again. The weight of his regret was suffocating him. I saw it in his eyes. In the way he watched me from across the room, desperate, hopeless. In the way his hands clenched at his sides, like he wanted to reach for me but knew he no longer had the right. In the way he stood still, frozen in the wreckage of his own making. But me? I had never felt lighter. Because for the first time in years, he was the one left behind. The next day I received another message. Please. Just 5 minutes. I didn't respond. Because 5 minutes wouldn't change the past. Wouldn't undo the choices he made with his own hands. Wouldn't erase the way he had chosen her over me without hesitation. And now? Now he was drowning in the consequences. And I was simply watching from the shore. But men like him, they don't give up easily. They don't know how to accept their own failure. They don't know how to face the reality that they lost. So he tried again. This time he didn't message me. Didn't call. He came in person. I had just stepped out of my office when I saw him, standing near the entrance waiting for me. His suit was still sharp. His shoes still polished. But his eyes? They were different. Empty. Like a man who had finally realized he had gambled away the only thing that mattered. And lost. I stopped a few feet away, tilting my head. Are you stalking me now? His throat bobbed. No. I crossed my arms. Then what do you want? His fingers twitched. I needed to see you. I let out a soft laugh. Well, you've seen me. I gestured toward the street. Now you can leave. His jaw tightened. I know I messed up. I sighed. That's an understatement. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I should have fought for you. I smiled. Yeah, you should have. Silence. A tense, suffocating silence. Then his voice cracked. I miss you. I raised an eyebrow. Funny. You didn't miss me when you were with her. He flinched, like the words had physically hit him. Good. Let him feel it. He took a slow step closer. I don't love her. I laughed. Cold. Sharp. Unforgiving. I don't care. His breathing stuttered. I watched as he realized it, truly realized it. I didn't care. Not anymore. His voice was quieter now. Almost broken. She was a mistake. I nodded. She was. His lips parted slightly, like he had expected me to say something else. Like he thought there was still a piece of me that would take him back. But there wasn't. And there never would be. His hands curled into fists. You don't miss me at all? I stared at him for a long moment. Then finally I whispered. I don't even think about you. His entire body tensed, like he had been stabbed in the chest. Because for a man like him, being forgotten was worse than being hated. He swallowed hard. I'll never forgive myself. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Then I shrugged. Good. His breath caught. I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You think your regret changes anything? His eyes were glassy now, like he had never expected me to be this cold. But he had taught me this, had turned me into this, had burned me alive and thought I would still reach for him. How foolish. I exhaled slowly. Then with a small smile I whispered, this is where you rot. And then I walked away. For the last time. Because now, he was nothing. And I was finally free. I walked away and never looked back. Not once. Not when I heard his sharp inhale. Not when I felt his gaze burning into my back. Not when I knew deep down that this was the moment he finally understood. He had lost me. Forever. The days passed. Then weeks. Then months. And his name faded into nothing. Just another forgotten man in the long, endless history of those who took me for granted. Just another regret he would carry for the rest of his life. Because me? I had a future. And he had nothing. People still whispered about him. About how he was barely holding on to what was left of his reputation. How the woman he chose over me had ruined him completely. How he had tried desperately to recover what was lost. But no one wanted to help him. Because no one respects a man who throws away a diamond for a piece of glass. And the best part? I never lifted a finger. He had destroyed himself. All I had done was walk away. One evening I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below. Everything I had built. Everything I had earned. Everything I had become without him. And for the first time in years, I breathed freely. Because there were no more shadows of the past. No more ghosts of what could have been. No more weight of a love that was never real to begin with. Just me. And the future I had rewritten for myself. I heard from him one last time. A letter. No return address. No name. Just a few words scribbled in handwriting I once knew so well. I should have chosen you. I should have never let you go. But now I live with my mistakes. And you? You don't even think about me anymore, do you? I stared at the letter. Then I laughed. Because he was right. I didn't think about him anymore. Not in anger. Not in love. Not in regret. Not at all. I burned the letter. Watched as the flames ate away at the past. At the broken promises. At the wasted love. At the man who once thought I would always be his. And when the last ember faded into ash, I turned away. Because he was nothing now. And I had everything.